button up there.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Vikings Territory Roundtable. I'm your host, Brett Anderson. I'm joined by some familiar faces. We got Sam Newman up top in the upper right-hand corner. We got Austin right below him. We got our guy, BJ Rydell, back at the table. Thank you for joining us, BJ. And then down in the bottom left-hand corner, we have Sean Borman. All of our Twitter handles are right next to our names. You can head over to Twitter and follow us for all the latest news, VT updates, etc. To be honest, guys, I am kind of a nervous wreck lately, and I've been having a really bad day, and that's all kind of exaggerated by the fact that I think about this looming game against the Saints this weekend. I kind of fluctuate between extreme excitement and like crippling bouts of anxiety about it. I was having lunch the other day, turned on ESPN, and they just happened to be talking about the game. And I immediately lost my appetite, and just with like feeling sick with anxiety. How are you guys doing right now? I'm looking to like, am I just insane? Are you guys also feeling super anxious about the game? Is it just excitement? I need somebody to kind of just like talk me back from the ledge a little bit here. Tell me it's all going to be okay. Or are you guys right there with me and also feeling anxious? Sam, you kind of touched on this in your latest bump and run.
Yes, Brett. I feel for you because I know you've had a real rough day. I'm sorry about that. Thank you for all of your work on trying to make our website work again.
Yeah.
But you are again being a negative Nancy and a worrywart. I talked about this a little bit on Bump and Run this week. Here's the deal. I need you to invest yourself fully emotionally because this team is going to win. It's too good. It's been too good of a season to be derailed by the Saints in the divisional round. They got everything going for them. The home field advantage is huge. It is now one of the best, if not the best, home field advantage in the NFL. And they know they may have the opportunity to play at home in the Super Bowl. That's a motivator. I think this team is clearly better than the Saints. I know the Saints are scary, but this reminds me of the same way we worked ourselves in the lather in 2009 before the Cowboys game in the divisional round. That game ended 34-3 Vikings, and with Wade Phillips complaining on national television about how they ran up the score in the playoffs.
You can't use 2009 as an example of why I should buy in, Sam.
Well,
that's an awful point to make.
I didn't say anything about next week.
Yeah, I love how you talked about the Cowboys game in 2009. I appreciate that. Am I the only one that's this anxious? I mean, because I'm an anxious person generally. But man, this week I've just been like, a few people have asked me, are you excited for the game this weekend? And I'm like, kind of, but I'm more petrified more than anything. And it's not because I think we're necessarily going to lose. I'm just a Vikings fan. And I guess I've just come to expect the worst, and it just makes me feel sick sometimes. BJ, do you understand where I'm coming from at all?
Yeah.
Do you feel similar? Do you feel?
Yeah, I kind of understand where you're coming from. Yeah, it's tough to be a Vikings fan right now. So
well, it's really not
challenge.
tough to be a Vikings fan right now because it's awesome to be a Vikings fan right now. It's just also kind of scary at moments.
I guess that's your opinion.
You don't think it's awesome to be a Vikings fan right now?
No, I do. I definitely think it's a great time. Vikings are playing great. I think that the anxiety thing for people is just kind of natural just because you've lived through so many years of Vikings football that, you get to this type of situation and you start looking around and, I just think the Saints are a scary team. They inherently have become a scary team to a lot of Vikings fans. And, I think to a degree that, I can level with them on that.
I think that's part of it. Like, I think how much we hate or how much I hate the Saints is definitely contributing to this. Okay, so I'm alone then in the anxiety.
Sean, no, I'm with you, Brett.
With the Super Bowl beanie on, you're anxious about it too?
Well, I shouldn't say I had a moment of anxiety. I mean, this week was the first week where I kind of sat back and thought about what if we lost. I hadn't really thought about that the entire season up until now, but be that as it may, I'm still confident. The more I learn about the team, the more I go through the stats, I think about how good this team is, I feel better about it.
Yeah. It's so irrational too, my anxiety. It's one of those things like completely I'm completely aware of how irrational it is. Like you said, Sean, all of the facts, Vegas picks the Vikings to win. Like, everything is pointing towards we should be very happy Sunday night. And then I don't know, I can't get over it. Austin, I know you're like, optimist about everything. So I'm not even sure I should bother asking how you feel about this game.
No, I was telling Sam before the show started, I am calm up until the point the game starts. Who do we got this week? Joe Buck?
Yes, you know that.
Yeah. So, no. I'm probably more anxious to listen to Joe Buck this game than I actually am to watch the game. That's how confident I am.
You are?
That's how confident I am.
You seem very confident.
I don't know. I don't look at the Saints. I think the Saints are probably the hardest team that the Vikings could have faced this round, but I don't necessarily think that it's a challenge that the Saints are going to come in and be extremely competitive. I just think it's a false narrative that the media has been driving, fake news, right? The Vikings are a better team. The Vikings are a better team. They should win this game easily. Home field advantage, a completely healthy team, a full week of rest. The Saints are missing their starting left guard. Their defense got torched by the Panthers last week. I just don't understand why we're freaking out because Drew Brees has a running game finally. I don't know. I'm not that worried about it.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about we're gonna deep dive into this game in a little bit here. We're gonna look at it from a bunch of different angles. A question that came up during the week that I heard a couple places that I thought was kind of interesting is, and I want to get the negativity out of the way, is they were looking at what if the Vikings lose this game, right? And kind of looking back at the season as a whole, what you walk away from this season thinking if the Vikings do end up losing on Sunday. So I wanted to ask you guys, if on the off chance that hell freezes over, Packer fans become intelligent, and the Vikings lose on Sunday, is this season a failure in your mind? Do you walk away? Is it basically Super Bowl or bust, and anything underneath that is a failure? Or even if we lose Sunday, will you walk away from this season feeling pretty good about what transpired? BJ.
I don't really care if the Vikings win, to be honest with you. I think it's a game where the Vikings, have a great opportunity to get this W. But the Saints are a talented team. They have developed well. There's a lot of very good young players on that roster. And, the Vikings have accomplished a ton this year already. They have the opportunity to do something great here, and it seems like they'll have, a chance to do that this week against the Saints. But at the same time, there's more important things than just Vikings football. There's some people that don't always feel that way, I suppose.
Wait,
that's not what I was expecting you to say.
Have you just been meditating a lot, or what's going on?
That was a very zen response and not what I was expecting.
That's good.
Is that why BJ's been gone? Has he been on a Buddhist retreat for like a month?
Right. So
it's one man's opinion.
Just to recap, you don't care if the Vikings win on Sunday.
Oh, I think I really care a lot, but it's a sport. It's supposed to be fun, and I think that when you look at this matchup, it's a prime time matchup. This is about as good as it's ever really been, in my opinion. So, I'm excited about this game, and win or lose, I think that this has been an extremely impressive season for the Vikings. They've done a lot. They've accomplished a ton, and hopefully if, things don't go their way, hopefully they'll have the opportunity to continue to turn this into more than just a one-year thing.
Yeah. So do you guys essentially agree with that it's not a failure, not all is lost if we don't win this Sunday?
I'm going to be distraught if we lost. Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm going to be really bummed out. I thought this team should be in the Super Bowl. I feel like we should be, basically. It'll be terrible if we do lose, but there is a silver lining of this team is built for the future. So there is that backing to it. But, man, this is a complete team. We might lose Keenum, we might lose Shermer. Let's win now. I mean, at home is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be tough to call the season a failure because it was 13-3. That's the second best regular season record in franchise history. But I kind of agree with Sean. I think it'd be an enormous disappointment for them not to make it out of the divisional round, which is how good this season's been, how many good teams they've beaten, and the fact that after the Wentz injury, I mean, the Vikings are the clear-cut best team in the NFC, I believe. And so if they come short of the I don't know if it's Super Bowl or bust, but to flame out in the divisional round, yeah, I think that'd be a huge disappointment.
Yeah. BJ, so one of the main story, well, not the main storyline on the About the Labor, but one of the things you guys were talking about on the About the Labor podcast that I was listening to earlier was basically, the storyline involving Drew Brees and Case Keenum, a very experienced playoff quarterback versus a quarterback that's never taken a snap in the playoffs. I guess I want to get your guys' opinion on whether or not you think Case Keenum is ready for this moment. And I guess it's probably hard to speculate without seeing him in the moment, but based on what we've seen this year, do you think that the lights are going to be too bright for Case Keenum Sunday, or do you think he's going to be able to come in and go toe-to-toe with Drew Brees, or does he even have to go toe-to-toe with Drew Brees? Does it matter at all if he's not ready for the spotlight because the defense is going to carry him through regardless? Austin?
I think playing at home really makes a difference. The Vikings have been so successful at home, and like Sam said, it's probably the best home field advantage in the NFL, that the lights can only get so bright there. And I watched his interview today. He's treating this as like any other quarterback would say in a cliche, is treating this like any other game. He's always nervous before games. His heart's always pounding. So I don't think that the onus is on him to carry the team. And I wouldn't expect, we've kind of seen over the season, he performs kind of along that same line. I wouldn't expect it to fluctuate one way or the other. Be good enough to win like he was against Atlanta. And I think the Vikings have a chance.
Do you guys think it's fair to talk about the playoff experience storyline when Drew Brees away split in the playoffs is pretty bad? I mean, is it almost like it's better to have a clean slate that you have with Keenum not being in a playoff game than to have Brees, who's really struggled in away games in the playoffs? Anyone? No?
Did you say he's 1-4, Austin? Brees 1-4 in the playoffs?
1-4.
Yeah, and I think the numbers I think it's a fair question because the numbers for a quarterback starting their first playoff game aren't very good either. They're actually pretty bad if memory serves. But it's impossible to know how he'll react. Now, there's been a lot of talk comparing Case Keenum to Kurt Warner. I don't know if you guys have heard this. It's been going on for months, actually.
I believe you
started it. But Kurt Warner, a very intelligent man, long time ago on a comical segment. But Kurt Warner was, he had never had playoff experience, and he won the Super Bowl. So anything can happen, but I think it's a legit question, honestly.
So let's move past the quarterback talk, because I think someone said in the chat, are Drew Brees and Case Keenum going to meet at the 50-yard line and fight? And I guess that's a valid question because no, they're not. So, I mean, there are more factors than just the quarterback. That's what a lot of the national media has been talking about all week. Because the Case Keenum story is a fun one. It's been one of the best storylines of the season, but there are a lot of other factors on this Vikings team that have gotten them to where they are. So I wanted to start off, I guess, with just the critical matchups that you guys think are gonna be a key component to this weekend's game against the Saints. Where are you guys really going to be looking to see the best matchups, the best one-on-ones throughout this game? Sean?
Well, I think obviously it starts with the quarterbacks, but
they're not fighting at the 50, man. We just established.
Yeah, we're moving beyond the quarterbacks, but I think it starts with Xavier Rhodes, Michael Thomas. That's going to be a fantastic matchup. Two of the best, at their positions in the business, and you guys know more about this. BJ, what do you think?
So looking at the I don't have the stats in front of me, but obviously Xavier Rhodes shut down Michael Thomas week 1. How much do you guys? How much is different about this matchup, BJ? Like, do you think, because a lot of the things we've talked about, we've talked about how Alvin Kamara has come a long way, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more. But is this offense so different that there's any possible way that Xavier Rhodes can struggle against Michael Thomas, you think? Or
Look, based off what I've seen from Michael Thomas and Xavier Rhodes is, both of them are very competitive athletes. Michael Thomas is phenomenal at what he does. He runs great routes. He's great hands. To a degree, I think a lot of people are still pissed off at the fact that the Vikings took Laquan Treadwell over Michael Thomas, particularly that Ohio State crowd. I'm not personally one of those people. I think that was probably, it's starting to look like a better decision every single day. But at the same time, Michael Thomas has been phenomenal. He's a great weapon for New Orleans. And, when you look across from him in Xavier Rhodes, he might be the best cornerback in the game, and I think that he is. So that should be a premier matchup. Should be a lot of fun to watch all night. And we've trusted Xavier Rhodes to be really good all season long, and I think we can expect the same thing from him once again.
What other matchups are you interested in?
Well, I like the linebackers running backs matchup. Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. That's premier stuff right there. That's four very good athletes, guys that can cover a lot of ground and do a lot in space. And, I think that it, to a degree, the game could come down to that type of a matchup. Two very athletic linebackers, two very athletic running backs. All four athletes can do quite a bit. But I think that Mark Ingram is probably the more talented of the two running backs. And, if Sean Payton elects to use him more frequently than the other, I would say that the Vikings, probably match up well with him. But at the same time, you look at what Kamara can do and what the Vikings are able to do on defense, and I just don't see him playing all that much this week.
So Ingram worries you more than Kamara at this point?
Yeah. Yes.
And why is that? Just out of curiosity.
He's a power
so much
runner.
of the storyline has been about, Kamara. Ingram is almost like
the
forgotten man leading up to this game.
So, I've seen that. I've seen a lot of stuff on Kamara. I just don't think that he's a good player, but I think that his value to the Saints is probably more in the future than anything else. I think that he's a young rookie, and to a degree, he might be out of gas. I know that they have a running back tandem there. It's been two guys to kind of carry the load for him, but ultimately, I think this is Mark Ingram's game. He seems like the guy that could attack the Vikings defense better, I suppose.
So do you guys buy into the whole narrative that this is a completely different running game than it was week one? And I know it seems like an easy question, but the reason I'm asking it is because obviously Adrian Peterson's out of the picture, but Alvin Kamara had the most runs week one against the Vikings. I believe Mark Ingram was second and Adrian Peterson was third. I think they were like 7, 6, 5. I mean, they were all pretty close, right? So you remove Adrian Peterson out of that picture, maybe 2, 3 carries get distributed each to Ingram and Kamara. How different is the running game if you remove Adrian Peterson from the picture, or is it just because it was a rookie week one and he's just developed so far to this point? Sam?
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. I think Kamara caught 89 balls this year, something like that. It's in the 80s, which is crazy for any running back, especially a rookie. So, yeah, I think they were working him in. And, of course, they were trying to get Adrian Peterson worked in. They were trying to figure out what the heck they were going to do with that thing week one. And, it obviously never worked out. So I don't buy that it's a ton different. I just think, kind of like you said, Brett, they were getting Kamara up to speed. And they've just gotten better at running the ball as the season went. That's all. They're a top 5 rush offense now, and it just took a little time, I think, for them to develop that. So whether or not they'll be that good against the Vikings, we'll see. I kind of happen to agree with BJ that I think the Vikings match up with the Saints pretty well in that regard, unless Mark Ingram does go Jonathan Stewart, kind of a little fluky, but you could see some of those power runs gashing him and getting him into the open field. So we'll see. Very apt commentary, cogent points going on in the chat too about actually the Vikings backs, tight ends, against the Saints linebackers, who everybody seems to think are very slow. So that's one to watch too.
Okay, so do any of you guys have any other critical matchups or any matchups you're going to be watching this game? Austin?
Yeah, I fell off, so I don't know if anybody said this.
We talked about the
Harrison
entire
Smith,
game. We're just wrapping up now. So if you just have a last critical matchup, we're gonna sign off after
no, I was gonna say it's Harrison Smith, Drew Brees for me. Really, it's Mike Zimmer, Drew Brees for me. I'd be curious to see kind of the approach they take with Harrison Smith, threatening at the line of scrimmage, rotating back, blitzing. How they're gonna, one, how Drew Brees is gonna deal with the crowd noise, and two, how Zimmer's kind of gonna play with that to dictate what he does with Harrison Smith. Because I don't think I look at the Vikings defense and I say, oh yeah, the Saints are going to come in and try and attack this. Like you look at the game last week against Carolina, I think they passed the ball 63% of the time because Carolina had sold out the run and Carolina was playing Green Bay's backups in the secondary. So it's not like the Saints are going to face that this week. And Rhodes, Alexander, Waynes, Sendejo, Smith, that's a lot better group than the group that they faced against Carolina. And then I also think back to the Vikings game against Carolina, how many shots that the Vikings took and missed, that drop by Kyle Rudolph, that 50-something yard pass that was a touchdown to Thielen, and all the throws that Keenum missed on the sidelines that went out of bounds that should have been caught or should have been, more towards the field of play. So I think that there are matchups that the Saints saw against the Panthers and said, yeah, we want to take advantage of these, that they're not going to be able to take against the Vikings. So really it's kind of seeing how Zimmer dictates what happens on the Saints offense.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
I just want to say, I think the trenches, the matchup in the trenches could be something to watch. The Saints have the injury to Pete, and I'm actually interested to see what lineup the Vikings go with, too, on their offensive line. So that'll be something to watch. I feel like whoever can get control in the trenches with these two matchups could really have an advantage.
Do you go ahead, Sam?
No, just I agree with that, especially the Saints offensive line versus the Vikings defensive line. It's so interesting to me from a Vikings defense standpoint to be an opposing offensive coordinator. I don't know how you game plan. I mean, I know obviously you're always trying to get your best players involved, but there are no weaknesses that you can attack on this defense. Now they can be beaten, of course. Something can happen, something can break down, but I don't see any clear weaknesses that you can go in and say, I'm going to attack that. I mean, maybe you look at Ben Gideon, but he's hardly on the field. And when he has been on the field, he's been pretty solid for a rookie and an afterthought. So it's interesting to me, like Austin said, that Drew Brees kind of Mike Zimmer matchup, Drew Brees, Sean Payton, Mike Zimmer matchup, to see where that goes, because they weren't able to do much week one.
How do you guys think the Vikings match up against the Saints secondary? Because obviously one of the main talking points leading up to this game has been the development of rookie Marshawn Lattimore. How different do you think this week's game is going to be from week one? And do you like the Vikings' chances against the secondary with Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Rudolph, and maybe even a little Treadwell in there? I don't know. What do you think, BJ?
I think you're absolutely right.
Are you optimistic that we can make something happen against this secondary, or is it a completely different team at this point?
Yeah, I think this is a really good team just overall. For me, there's a lot of really good players on it, and I think that some good things will happen, and there will probably be some bad things as well.
Very astute.
Thanks.
Man.
Okay.
Are we being trolled?
Yeah. Okay. So I think one of the things that's pretty interesting is how the Saints are going to try and deal with Adam Thielen. We've heard a lot of talk about Marshawn Lattimore. Maybe Lattimore gets lined up against Diggs. We know they like to move Thielen around. Do you guys see Thielen, maybe moving around in the slot being a key component to the Vikings offense having success? I know we've identified also the linebackers as a potential area in the middle of the field for the Vikings to attack as well. So what kind of day do you think Thielen's going to have? Go ahead, Austin.
I'd expect the Vikings to go into it and say not much has changed. Marshawn Lattimore was on the field the first game. The linebacking core hasn't changed all that much. There's not again, the whole narrative that the Saints are a brand new team only really looks at the offense and their running game, but doesn't really look at the defense outside of Marshawn Lattimore. So I don't think the game plan is going to change all that much. What interests me is, has anyone else seen that Mike Remmers is practicing at left guard this week to start?
Yes, it's weird.
So it's weird, but I wonder if the Vikings are going to go into this game and say, we're going to run with Mike Remmers at left guard. We're going to bring in Collins as a 6 offensive lineman. We're just going to pound the rock. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm curious to see how they switch things up from the first week. But I wouldn't expect a whole lot to change from week 1 to today or Sunday. You just have a different quarterback and a different running back in the game.
Does that narrative bother anyone else? Because I think you kind of saw in Zimmers Presser this week, he seemed a little agitated by that narrative. I can't remember his exact words, but he basically said, we're both different teams. Everyone's talking about the changes the Saints have made. Who thought we were going to be 13-3? We're in a completely different position than we were week 1 as well. Do you guys kind of buy into this narrative that the Vikings are the same team and the Saints are the different team?
Yeah, I don't at all. Because the Vikings have a different quarterback and with a completely different skill set, meaning they've changed the offense. I mean, we saw that. Week 1 offense was completely different from what they've been running with Case Keenum. So the Vikings are as different, if not more different than the Saints. Now, what they're saying when they're saying the Saints are a different team is they're saying the Saints are better. And I agree with that, but why weren't they better week 1? Is it because it was a different time, or is it because the Vikings made them look not better?
Right.
Worse.
So the Vikings defense is better now, thus negating, the fact that the Saints offense is maybe a little better. Is that what you're saying?
No, I just think the Vikings defense is very good and has been all year, so they made the Saints offense look like crap week 1.
Okay, and they're going to make them look like crap again this Sunday, hopefully.
They might. I just think when they say, oh, the Saints offense has gotten so much better. Yeah, they haven't played the Vikings again. They haven't played the number 1 defense in the NFL. They only did that week 1. Maybe that has something to do with why they didn't look very good.
Right. Okay. So what do you guys think are the, how do the Saints beat the Vikings? What's something that you guys are worried about headed into this game? I also I heard Drew was talking about basically his concern that, the Saints can get off to a fast start and then the Vikings may not be able to rebound from that. What do you think about that, Austin?
I wish Drew was on the show because I clearly disagreed with him in our private conversation.
That's why I'm calling on you.
Yeah, because that's just not true. The Vikings went down 7-0 against the Rams and shut the Rams down and came back and beat them 24-7. The team is capable of coming from behind. They came back against the Redskins, nearly came back against the Panthers. I don't think that's true. I also think that the only thing that scares me about this game, and I'm not saying, Case Keenum is the problem, but he's the one throwing the football. So the Saints forced a turnover, and there's a huge swing in points, right? Say it's a 7-0 game. Saints, Keenum gets a ball tipped, gets picked off, pick 6. It's 14-0 now. That's a problem. But I don't think it's going to be the case that Drew said where the Vikings allow the Saints to drive down the field multiple times and build this big lead. I just can't see that happening this week.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to, I guess, kind of agree with Drew that I do have some concern if the Vikings manage to drop 2 scores early. I guess I just don't see it. There's nothing that's happened this season to lead me to believe it's going to happen as a result of Drew Brees driving down the field, right?
That's what gets me. It's why do we allow ourselves to think that's going to happen when we haven't seen that happen all season long? I mean, there was a point in the season where teams were driving down the field on the Vikings and scoring quick, whether it be field goals or touchdowns. And that seemed to stop with the Bengals, the Bears, the Packers. Who else did the Vikings play? There was a game after the Panthers game.
The awful
was it
teams?
The Bengals game? Yeah, it was all the awful teams. But still, right? They've shown a trend of clamping down and shutting teams down. I don't care if they're good or bad. You're in the NFL. So I just can't see that happening.
Okay. What do you think, Sean? Is there anything that has you worried about this game?
I would say quarterback playoff experience. Brees has made – this will be his 13th start. Case Keenum 0. I'm kind of split on that, but I do think it does have its advantages for Brees. And also the fact that the Saints have scored more than 20 points, or at least in the regular season, they scored more than 20 points in 14 to 16 of their games. So, they're a scoring offense. If they get going, that's the only thing that concerns me is stopping their momentum.
Yeah. What about you, Sam? Concerns? Biggest
Yeah,
concern?
I actually kind of agree with Drew, even though I'm not going to disagree with Austin because the Vikings have shown the ability to come back, especially after they used to give up a touchdown on the opening drive every game, and then they've shown an ability to come back from that and win. We've seen it's a long game, but I do think if there's a way the Saints beat the Vikings, it's something like that, jumping out 14-0, kind of getting the crowd out of it a little bit.
How do you see that happening?
So I see a long touchdown pass from Drew Brees, and then I see a Case Keenum pick in their own territory. That seems like the most likely thing.
So a turnover?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that to me seems like the way the Saints, they're sort of able to run the ball a little bit more, and if they have success with that neutralizes the pass rush, and they can slow the game down and really make it ugly.
Well, the Saints defense, I mean, that's something I think that they've proven they can do this year is take the ball away from opposing teams. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, which is why it's a very interesting matchup, is you have the Vikings who basically don't turn the ball over. So, you have a very opportunistic Saints defense going up against a quarterback that has shown that he doesn't turn the ball. Although I feel like when we say that, like we're giving Keenum a lot of credit because there's definitely been some throws that were could have been interceptions where he kind of got off easy. But overall, I mean, the Vikings have done a really good job of not turning over the ball this year. So I think that'll be definitely one of the more interesting things to watch this weekend. What about you, BJ? Any fears keeping you up at night as far as how the Saints attack this team?
None. No fears.
No fear.
I kind of agree with what you guys are saying. I agree with what you guys are kicking around. I think that the Vikings are a very talented team, and I think the Saints are also very talented, but it's going to come down to what Mike Zimmer thinks, and if he, continues to do what's working, sticks with the same mentality, trusts his guys, I think he can get the job done. So it ultimately comes down to the team thing. I'm just going to keep using that cliche. That's my thing. I'm going to keep rolling with that, and until this Vikings team stops playing like a team, I think they're they're a dynamite team that can do a lot of damage, not just this postseason, but potentially next year as well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just go ahead and wrap this thing up. I want to get your guys' predictions so we can get on out of here. I'm assuming we're going to have wins across the board unless there's going to be that one person that kind of ruins it for us. Sam.
Brett, you will be the person.
No, I won't.
All right.
Because, like I said, I'm confident. I'm just irrationally anxious. So at least I'm able to recognize that it's irrational. I'm confident in the Vikings.
Well, right. I would just say it's actually a little rational based on what we've been through in our lives. So I'm not mad at you.
Okay. That doesn't.
Are you asking for a prediction?
That doesn't help me. You telling me my anxiety is rational is not helping. But okay.
I'm sorry.
So go ahead, Sam. You got a prediction?
Yeah, I got it. 30-17 Vikings, and I'm seeing a Case Keenum rushing touchdown, maybe in a bootleg. After that, you're on your own.
Okay. What about you, Sean?
I got the Vikings winning in a close one, 28-27.
Okay.
Ooh, boy.
Austin, I'm interested in your prediction. By the way, I haven't told you this, but all that money we've been building up, doing these various parlays throughout the year, we're putting it all on the Vikings this week. I figure I'm already all in emotionally, so I might as well be all in financially as well. So I'm eager to hear your prediction.
So the Vikings haven't allowed 20 points in their building all season. If I'm getting this correct, the closest any team got was 19. Week 1 Saints, garbage time touchdown. I don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be 24-13 Vikings. I think the Saints struggle to move the ball. They're not going to be able to run the ball. I'm confident, and I'm going to eat my words if they lose, but I'm not that hungry. I'm not going to eat them. So 24-13.
All right, BJ, I know you love these predictions, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So you got a score prediction? No score prediction?
No.
Okay.
No, pick one.
Can,
You have to.
can we at
Throw it
least
out
get
there.
like a Vikings are going to
3-2.
win or no?
Well, according to Vegas says it's a 5-point Vikings advantage.
It's at 5 now. I thought it was 3 before.
Whoa, me too.
Well, it started at 4 earlier
We
this
should
week.
have put that money. we dropped the ball there, Austin. That's
You know, I think the Vikings can win this game. I think they could win this by a lot. I also think they could win it by a little. I'm not quite sure.
But they were both wins.
Yeah, this is a very good team. I'm working on my cliches right now, so
Hot take all night, man.
I
love that.
I trust this Vikings team to get the job done, but at the same time, with all the missed field goals in the past and stuff of that nature, I think that the concern, like Sam said, like Brett said, like Austin has said, like Sean has said, and like pretty much every Vikings fan has ever said, there's a reason to be nervous until the game is finally over.
All right, guys. Well, that's gonna do it. BJ, I appreciate you coming back, man. All right,
You're welcome, Brett.
I think we had like 699 subscribers prior to this show. I'm hoping someone got us to 700 during the thing. So just click that little subscribe button right there, get us to 700, we'll see you guys on the other side. I hope we are doing a happy recap show next week. I hope it's not just us all sitting around with our head in our hands crying. But regardless, we'll be here either way. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.